In these very complex days, it's important to recall that Israel is exporting gas to Egypt and Jordan, which is making, again, the concept of bridge fuel a different bridge, connecting and serving needs. So I'm very positive about being a bridge fuel, apart from all the timing issues because I told also during the last World Gas Conference in Beijing that as an Italian, I still use ancient Roman bridges built 2,000 years ago. So I can say bridges, if built well, are there to stay. One of the challenges, of course, is the dimensions. Right. This region, ASEAN region, is 700 million people, if my numbers are right. And of course, the distances as well are not trivial in a way. And as we were commenting before, there are different, let's say, stages of developments. So it's very important to create a solid understanding of the different needs, first of all. Second point is to create maybe a fast tracking of supporting actions that can be, let's say, complemented by other countries. Of course, again, I have my European background, and of course, I can tell you that Europe is not one single region. We have 27 very different countries. Latin America, which I was mentioning before, they have an organization called OLABE, which is gathering all the energy ministers of 27 countries as well, from Caribbean to deep South America. So the point is that there is no physical connectivity sometimes, but the fact that we are also having a more global network, this is somehow simplifying these collaboration platforms. I mean, we have to work on that. Just to give figures, 80% of LNG for Asia is arriving from Middle East. Right. So it's very relevant. Again, my take, hopefully, is that things will not deteriorate. But of course, this calls again for more diversification, for more reliance on additional domestic production where possible, additional routes. Again, we are going to have new LNG coming from Western Canada. The Panama Canal is, of course, a good, let's say, transit route as well. Of course, we have to understand where the problems might be and deal with them possibly in advance. That's the very essence of the DNA of our industry. As I normally say, we have the same vocabulary between gas and electricity, but one word: blackout. We cannot afford blackouts. So that's where we have to look at how to increase the optionality in that respect. So the more projects will be allowing both this region and others to leverage on potential diverse opportunities, also in difficult times. Somehow true up to a point, at least in the statements, there is a concept of independence, which is getting traction. I am, again, from my experience, a little bit skeptical about full independence. Of course, you can have different resources in different countries, but it's not full independence. I mean, we are so interconnected that we can and should leverage on this connectivity better. It requires an effort, by definition so. It is not easy. It will require the industry, for sure, to step up, as we are trying to do as the IGU, to make clear the case for the collaboration to be meaningful and effective. That's something that we have the possibility to demonstrate. And again, with my capacity as the IGU president, I'll be for sure able to share many different regional experiences that are meaningful. Let me give you an anecdote. Brazil, relying 80% on hydropower for their power generation, but they had a couple of years ago a severe drought. Yes. And they increased sixfold the LNG imports. This was possible because they had the infrastructures for receiving that LNG. What if, again, the what if, and the same situation is happening in Colombia now, which was a self-sufficient country in terms of gas, but they are having ramp-up demand and they have to import LNG. So Argentina, on the other side, remaining in Latin America, is developing new domestic resources and possibly being an exporting country. Of course, there is a push to more renewables, which is very nice, very good. The important thing is that the more renewables you inject into the power system, and it requires a lot of grid extensions and resilience, the more flexibility you are needing from the conventional, let's say, fuels. That's where gas can be an absolute partner to renewables, because coal power plants or nuclear, looking ahead, power plants are not ramping up and down flexibly as a CCGT. So you have to avoid adding rigidity to rigidity. So that's very essential.
It can be a perfect substitute for...
I mean, let me give you an example about Germany. Germany has been implementing a lot of renewables, but they are now going for setting up new CCGTs, new combined cycle gas turbines for 20 gigawatts. So it's very important that we are creating the best possible resilience of energy. Because again, we cannot afford energy to be unstable, unpredictable. We are getting more and more used to having energy wherever, whenever, and however we want. It's common. So it's very important that we take that as a result of the actions that we have to implement. That said, of course, it's a progression. It's a progression because, of course, you have to add grids, you have to add gas networks, you have to, let's say, create the best possible market framework for that as well. It is requiring a combination of technical, commercial, regulatory policy, and communication as well. We have, I think, on our industry side, we have been somehow, as I say normally in Europe, too shy for too long. We have not been vocal about how we can be part of the solution. And we are there to serve. Again, there are people in our industry, and rightly so, they are very proud about their technical jobs. But eventually, what we are here for is to give energy to people, to consumers. Be it power, be it industrial, be it heat when it's cold, as in northern part of Europe, for instance, or in my country, and also transportation, as I mentioned. And here Indonesia has also a very special geography situation where maritime transportation is very relevant. So again, substituting LNG or fuel oil with LNG can be an immediate source of reducing emissions, because we are talking about emissions in power normally, but there are a lot of other things to be attacked. For sure, the simple answer is yes. We have to be mindful that variability is in the nature of this weather phenomena. Of course, here you have maybe more sun than in Germany, but at the same time, you have variability of that. So we have to be mindful of the fact that we have to have grid stability all of the time. We have all seen, and you have possibly read about the recent blackout in Spain and Portugal. So that's creating a lot of tensions in systems where you have to manage these very high flexibility or variability of sourcing, where you do not have enough, let's say, supporting instruments. And of course, electricity is very much, let's say, tight in terms of frequency adjustments, is seconds, milliseconds. So you have to be very, very good at that, of course. So this is another additional challenge that you have to think about to provide all the time the energy that is needed. Again, just as a personal anecdote, I started my day today in this building with an electricity problem in my lift. I was stuck in the lift for 15 minutes.
Actually, so I came with my car and parked down there in the basement, and it suddenly blacked out down there.
So again, this is reality checks.
Yeah.
So we have to be mindful about what we are implying by using energy all of the time, and how energy is important in terms of value chain, resilience all of the time. The first one, there is no magic touch. So it's important to acknowledge the fact that things require time. In order to best benefit from the time of adjustments, you have to have a consistency of policy making. You cannot change policy every now and then, because of course you have to have a clear visibility of trajectories. Otherwise, investments are not there. You are not investing because of a statement. You're investing because the credibility of that statement will remain for a certain period of time. That's where I think it's incumbent on us as an industry to be more clear in a way of what is needed to make things happen in the right manner and with the right timing. Then of course it's also on our side to move faster, to develop better technologies. But I think this is part of the DNA of the industry.
Yep.
Of course, we have, as the IGU, for instance, we are having interactions with G7, G20, at COP, because we think it's appropriate for us to engage in a meaningful conversation with policymakers to make them understand better how we are, as I mentioned before, part of the solution. We are not the solution. I mean, I am very skeptical about whoever says we are the solution. There is no one solution. But indeed we have the robustness to say gas is essential for, as we say in the manifesto I mentioned before, for human progress and global growth. Because again, we are serving 1/4 of the energy needs of today. 1/4. It is immense. And we are delivering 24/7, 365 days per year, every condition. That's very important. And again, it's very much of the essence to engage in a positive and continuous relationship with stakeholders, policymakers by definition, regulators. But again, I reinforce the concept of making also understandable to the public at large the issues related to energy, because energy is the engine of growth. Growth, not just economic, is social growth, is human. That's where I think we have a very important moral imperative, in a way, to play this game in the credible manner that we are used to adopt for project making. You have to very much understand the stage of developments of the gas market, electricity market, and the backdrop of any decision. Let me use the European example. We decided to liberalize the gas market and the electricity market at the end of the 90s, but it took 15 years to create the real market. So it's very important to create the trajectory, to set up what is the goal and to progress with that. For instance, in Indonesia, again, we have mentioned the industry. I know there is a tension about subsidies, the so-called concept of cheap energy. No? For instance, in Europe, we had a decision to progressively open the market. So families were the last, and you started with power generation and large industries. Because of course, the capacity to negotiate terms which are meaningful are better for large players. You don't have to have a big bang. Sometimes you have a progression that is allowing also both policymakers and industry players to adjust to conditions. So with that, of course, there is a tremendous need and a tremendous challenge. I mean, I recognize the complexities behind these concepts, which require open and constructive dialogue. This is very, very much the starting point. I'm not saying it's the end, because it's not, But we have to have the possibility to understand each other better, because otherwise we are having just a mismatch.
Yeah.
If you're speaking Indonesian, unfortunately, I will not be able to understand. And that's the language gap sometimes that we have to, let's say, reduce.
Yeah.
I mean, there are many scenarios around, but we think for sure gas will be an important fuel for the future. What future means, for what is foreseeable future? The world is not terminating in 2050, 2060 or 2070. So it's very important that we continue innovating to reduce progressively the carbon footprint of gas. We have to tackle methane emissions, we have to increase biomethane, we have to promote hydrogen, we have to promote CCS. This is the way through which the so-called conventional resources can be, of course, leveraged also in a progression of more close net zero world whenever it will happen. But to arrive there, you have to multiply the resources now. You have not to wait for perfection. We have to start increasing the possibility to have more supply, more projects, more infrastructures, because again, there is one certainty to me, there is demand will be growing. The point is that we are talking about Asia, Southeast Asia for sure is very important, but let me use to conclude with one simple and very staggering figure coming from the Gas for Africa report we released a few years back. The per capita electricity consumption of a person in sub-Saharan Africa is one fridge. One fridge. So let's be concrete.
What is one fridge?
One fridge means the consumption of one fridge, a normal refrigerator.
Okay.
A normal refrigerator is the consumption of one person in that part of the globe. And we are talking about a population which will increase by 1 billion people. So we have to eradicate energy poverty. At the same time, we have to continue serving other needs, the needs we are having here, and at the same time, we are having to reduce emissions. So it's a triple challenge in a way. So we cannot just say renewables only, or this technology only. The winner will be that one. We have to promote a wider set of options, and we think gas is one of the most immediate ones. Because again, back to the targets in climate and back to the targets in meeting energy demand, gas is there. Infrastructures are there, we have to continue working on that. Yes, and in addition to that, let me also recall the fact that gas is essential for feeding the world, because it's essential for fertilizers. So it is somehow a nuance which is not much talked about, but it's very essential. So if we want to continue feeding the world, we have to continue having fertilizers, therefore gas is essential there as well. This conversation today, I think it will be just the first of a series, because I think there is plenty of opportunities to have more meaningful conversations going on to make what we have talked about today a reality tomorrow.